comprehensions. List comprehensions are a feature of Python that allows us to create new lists very succinctly while also being very powerful. Let's say you've got a list of numbers and you want to create a new list which contains those numbers multiplied by 2. So you'd start with something like numbers equal, and the numbers from 0 to 4, say. And then you want doubled numbers to contain those numbers, but every number multiplied by 2. What you'd have to do without a list comprehension is you would have to use a for loop to go over each number in the numbers list. And then you would have to say doubled numbers dot append to add a new number to the doubled numbers list. And you can append number times 2. And then at the end you can print doubled numbers. So this would do what you want. If you run this, you'll see that the output is 0, 2, 4, 6, 8. Instead of doing this, you can use a list comprehension, which actually has similar syntax in many places, but it's much shorter, and once you're accustomed to it, it's also a little bit easier to read. How you do that is you would say doubled numbers equals, and then you start off with some brackets. You put here the value that you want to use in the new list, which would be number times 2. And then you put in something like what you see in a for loop. So this is a shorter way of doing exactly this piece of code here. You say, I want to put in my new list number times 2, where the number is each number in the numbers list. And the syntax for that is, again, inside square brackets, the value you want to create into the new list for the variable that you want to use in the list that you want to iterate over to create this new list. So again, it does exactly the same as this. You create your new list, iterate over the numbers list, and add the new number into the new list. So you can just delete this, and of course move the print statement underneath so that it exists when you print it, and the output is exactly the same. Now remember that instead of creating your own list of numbers, you can use range, so you can say in range 5. Now this is exactly the same. You're still creating your new number variable that only exists within this new list, and you are iterating from 0 to 5. And every iteration you're putting into the new list number times 2. Notice that here you can put whatever you want. So it doesn't have to be number times 2. It could just be 5 if you want. And then what you would get out would be 5, 5, 5, 5, because you are repeating 5 times, and the value you're putting each time is 5. If you want, you can go back to number times 2. But again, just wanted to tell you that anything goes in here. You don't have to use this variable. You can put whatever you want. And like I mentioned earlier on in the course, if you're not using the variable, you normally use the underscore for it to signal that you don't care about the variable in here. Let's say you've got a list with your friends' ages and you want to create a new list which contains a string describing your friend's age for each of your friends. So you could create something like age strings, and in here put an F string. My friend is age years old. Now you want to create this string for each element in this list. So you would say for age in friend ages. Let me just make this a bit bigger for you so you can see it in one line. So this is exactly the same structure as we had before. You've got your brackets that signal that you are creating a new list. And then because of what's inside it, you know it's a list comprehension. You've got this for loop there. And what you're putting into your new list is this string. My friend is age years old. And then you're creating the age variable that you're going to use for each of the values in your friend ages list. So you'd end up with one string for each age, where the age variable will be replaced into there. So you can print age strings. So you can see the output here is a list with 4 elements, 4 strings, 1 for each age. Now let's say you've got the names of some of your friends, like Rolf, Bob, and Jen. And what you want is to apply a transformation to each element so that you'll only get back lowercase letters. So Rolf will be turned to lowercase r, O, L, F, Bob will get a lowercase b, and Jen will get a lowercase j. What you can do is you can create a new list, which will be a list comprehension, and what you'll do here is name.lower, which actually can be used on any string to turn it into a lowercase string for name in names. And again, you create the name variable, which will be each of the strings inside the names list, and you're putting into your new list name.lower every iteration, which will give you lowercase Rolf, lowercase Bob, lowercase Jen. So if we print this out, you'll see the output there. This is particularly useful for when you want to work with user input. For example, let's say you've got a list of friend names and you want the user to give you their name so you can see if they are in the list. It's possible that the user will type lowercase or uppercase letters which don't exactly match these strings. So it can be useful to turn everything to lowercase when you're doing comparisons between your strings and user input. For example, something like this. You've got a friend variable, which is some user input. We ask them to enter their friend name. And then you've got a friends list, which contains a bunch of friends. If you want to see whether the user's input is in this list, you can do something like if friend in friends, print friend is one of your friends. So we can run this. And if we enter Rolf, say, then we'll get Rolf is one of your friends. But very often users will enter Rolf or maybe lowercase Rolf. Maybe they can't be bothered entering the capital R, or maybe their name is all in lowercase, as in some countries. That is what happens. So if we enter Rolf with a lowercase r, you'll see that nothing gets printed out, even though it probably should. So what to do is create a new list where each of the names is lowercase. So friends lower can be name.lower for name in friends. And then what we're going to do is compare friend against friends lower. But if we do this and run it as is, when we type Rolf with a capital R, it will no longer show as correct, because now we are comparing capital R Rolf with lowercase Rolf, which is in this list. So we also have to turn friend into lowercase in order to have a fair comparison. So we'll do if friend.lower in friends lower, then we will print out. This has a benefit, which is that now I can type Rolf with a capital R, and it says that it's one of my friends. But I can also type Rolf with a lowercase r, and that's also fine. Finally, I can type Rolf with any sort of upper or lowercase letters, and it will be correct. By the way, if you wanted to print this out with the usual capitalization, which is the R uppercase and the rest of the letters lowercase, and that's called title casing. And you can do that on the friend here by doing title. So here I've typed Rolf with all uppercase letters, but because we're printing friend.title, what that does is it turns it into the traditional title casing, which is that every word in the string will have the first letter as uppercase and the other letters as lowercase. So this can just be a small improvement, and of course you can put this into a separate variable if you prefer, just like that. So either goes, it's up to you. So that's it for this video. We have learned about list comprehensions, which, to recap, have a structure of the new value that you want to put into your list for the variable that you want to use for each iteration in the iterable that you want to go over. And this doesn't have to be a list, by the way. It could be a tuple or a set or anything else. In the next videos, we're going to learn a bit more about list comprehensions, including how to add conditionals to them to make them a bit more flexible. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you with conditionals, which we can use to filter out some elements while we're putting them into a new list using list comprehensions. So let's say you've got some ages of your friends, and you want to get only the odd ages. You could do something like odds equal age for age in ages, and that is a list comprehension that puts the value age for age, which is the new variable you're creating, in the ages list. So it's going to put every age in the ages list into a new list that you're calling odds. What you can do is, if you wanted to get only the odd ages, you can actually put an if statement at the end. If age modulus 2 equal 1. And what this is going to do is it's going to put this value into the new list if this conditional is true. And if this conditional is false, then it's not going to put the value in. So if we run that, you'll see 35, 27, and 21, which are the odd ages in the original list. Now, I appreciate that as soon as you start putting conditionals into a list comprehension, it does get a little bit more cluttered because you have the for keyword, in keyword, and if keyword all in one line. So something you have to be careful with when you're writing list comprehensions is that if it's getting too long and too complicated, you can split things out and move them outside the list comprehension, or you can just use a normal for loop like we learned in the last video to add to a new list. That can reduce the cognitive load on your brain because it can make the code a bit easier to read. So list comprehensions are good when they are kept simple and they help your code, but if they're too complicated, they can actually detract from your code. Let's say you've got the names of some friends and they are in a mix of uppercase and lowercase spelling, and then you've got another list of guests that have come to one of your parties. We're going to turn every friend in our friends list into lowercase so that we can easily compare them with our guests. But if we wanted to compare, now let's say we want a final list of those friends that have come to your party. So there are two approaches. The first approach is that you can turn all of these guests into lowercase as well. So you can do guests lower equal G lower for G in guests. So now you have two lowercase lists. If you turn both of these into sets by actually passing them through the set function, then you could print the intersection of the two. So friends lower dot intersection with guests lower. And this would give you those friends that are here and also here, which are Charlie and Rolf. So this is one way to do it. But it's a bit more difficult to get these names out as capital C and capital R, because in the sets you've got them all as lowercase. So instead, we're not going to use sets for our approach, and we're going to use a list comprehension. We will create a present friends list. Because it's going to be a long list comprehension, I'm going to split it out into multiple lines. And you can do this, you can just put the square brackets in one line and in another, and in the middle you can write out your list comprehension. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the name for name in guests if the name.lower is in friends lower. And what this allows me to do is put each of the names of the guests inside my new list if that name turned to lowercase is in my friends lower list. And of course, instead of just name, I can do name.title. If we print this out, you'll see the output here, which is Rolf and Charlie. Another benefit of this that might be a benefit or it might be irrelevant for your program is that the output is in order of the guests, so Rolf and then Charlie. When you turn these into sets, they lose the order. So potentially if this order had some sort of meaning in your program, such as who arrived first or something like that, then you would get to keep that if you use lists, but you wouldn't get to keep that if you use sets. As an aside, here's something that you probably should never do, which is nest list comprehensions one inside of another. Here you've got friends lower, which you know is this list comprehension here, which turns each friend into their lowercase variant. But you actually don't have to define a variable. You can just copy it and paste it in there and delete this variable entirely. But as you can see, this is a very dangerous thing to be doing because it quickly becomes unreadable. Splitting things out into variables is almost always the better choice because it's going to make your code more readable. If you do have a long list comprehension where one line is not enough, you can split it further into something like this. It's usual to have the first line as the new thing that you want to put into your list. The second line as the iteration over an existing iterable like this list. And finally, the comprehension, if there is one. Splitting list comprehensions in this way can be helpful to make your code a bit more readable, but it is a sign that it is getting a bit too long. So it's almost always better to put this here into a separate variable and either keep it in 3 lines or put it back into 1 line. That's it for this video though. I just wanted to show you that you can put if statements inside a list comprehension where it makes sense. Don't overcomplicate things. Writing simple code is almost always better than writing complicated code. Thanks for joining me in this video, and I'll see you soon. In the last video, we had a look at this code, where we have our friends list and our guests list. And in order to compare them both, we tried to turn them both into lowercase, and then pass them through sets, so that we could then print the intersection. And we did friends lower.intersection guests lower. However, we can just use set comprehensions instead of list comprehensions and then pass it through the set function. Just like we can do list comprehensions by using square brackets and then putting the thing we want to put into the new list for the iterating variable in the iterable, we can just do this. Instead of creating a new list first and then making a set out of it, we can just create a set straight away, and that is going to be faster and also a bit more readable. Let's do the same down here. Now, one of the problems we had in the last video with doing something like this is we weren't able to output the names in capitalized format. So we always had the lowercase names at the end because that's what we used to sort of compare them. But actually we can create a final set comprehension that does this for us. So what I've got here is a third set comprehension that puts the name turned into title case for the name in the intersection. Of course, it is easier if you take this out and put it into another variable, just like that. If we run this, you'll see that the output is now what we wanted. Though it is a little bit longer, it does have the extra benefit of removing any duplicate friends if there were any. So if somebody was in this list twice, for example, for some reason, either due to an error or maybe they RSVP'd twice or something like that, then this would get rid of that. However, it could also have the problem of removing duplicate elements. So if two people have the same name, you could end up with only one of those people showing up in these sets. Either way, I wanted to tell you that you can do set comprehensions, which is the same thing as a list comprehension, but using curly braces instead of square brackets, and you end up with a set at the end of it. Let's say you've got a list of friend names and how long ago since you last saw them, and you want to create a dictionary out of these two. What you can do is you can create something like a variable called long timers, and once again, using curly braces, just as we do with dictionaries, you can do friends I, times since seen I. And what this does is it accesses the ith element of the friends list. So for example, if I was 0, it would access friends 0, and that's Rolf, and it would associate with that this value here, which is times since seen 0, which would be 3. So you could end up with Rolf 3. Now, if you repeat this for every index, so 0, 1, 2, and 3, you'd end up with a dictionary of the elements which include all of these in these two lists. So you could do for I in range of the length of friends. And what this means is you are creating a new variable called I, and its values will range from 0, which is the start of the range function, up to the length of friends, which is 4. So it would go from 0 to 3 inclusive, and that would give you all of these. If we print this out and run it, you'll see what I mean. You get Rolf and 3, Bob and 7, Jen and 15, Anne and 11. One of the benefits of doing a list comprehension like this one is that if you were only interested in those people that you haven't seen for 5 days or more, you can of course put a conditional in here as we've seen. Something like that. So now you're only running this if the times since seen I, which would be the number that we're currently looking at, is greater than 5. So now you would only get Bob, Jen, and Anne. Running this, you'll see that that is correct. So dictionary comprehension, which is this, works in exactly the same way as set comprehension, in that you use the curly braces, but instead of putting a single value into the set comprehension, you put the key, the value, just as we did with dictionaries before. Dictionary comprehension is used much less than other types of comprehension, but sometimes it can be really handy. So I just wanted to show it to you, tell you that it's possible, and maybe you'll encounter it in the future. Thank you for joining me in this video. I hope you've learned something, and I'll see you in the next one.